So we are reading Flying Solo by Ralph Fletcher. The book is broken into, the chapters are actually divided into times of day. So the story starts on Friday, April 28th. And we are going to start with chapter one, which is Rachel White at 7:03 a.m. Rachel lay in bed, reading, waiting until the last possible minute when she absolutely had to put down her book and get out of bed. Many people believe that it is the air passing under the wings that supports the plane as it flies, she read. In fact, it is the air passing over the wings that provides the lift that keeps the airplane in the air. Rachel, Mom yelled, come on, gal, shake a leg. Rachel sighed and looked up from her book at the posters around her room. Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, Sally Ride, John Glenn. It was hard to believe that they had to go to school too. Rachel swung her legs out of bed and stumbled into the bathroom. She didn't look forward to school much these last 6 months. There wasn't much joy. There wasn't much to enjoy except for Mr. Fabiano. He was by far the greatest teacher she had ever had, smart and funny and simply gorgeous, with black eyes that could always find a place deep inside her. She had a crush on him, all right. Not that she was alone. Most of the other sixth grade girls had crushes on Mr. Fab. She would never call him that nickname. No way. It made her think of Fab laundry detergent. She would always think of him as Mr. Fabiano. Rachel leaned forward to wash her face with cold water. She brushed her teeth, rinsed her mouth, and cleared her throat. The guttural sound startled her. There was a hint of her voice in that sound, and she had not heard her voice in the past 6 months. She remembered the day it happened. Tommy Feathers, a kid in her sixth grade class, had brought to class some raspberry pies he'd made at his parents' bakery. Tommy had brought a wedge of pie for everyone, but he put the biggest piece of pie on her desk. Tommy smiled at her. He had a rather big head and an annoying habit of humming loudly in the class. He was a little slow. Already he had been held back twice, so he was 2 years older than anybody else in sixth grade. It was no secret that he was in love with her. Every day he tried to give her cards, stories, seashells, and now this huge chunk of raspberry pie. She tried not to be mean, but sometimes he really got on her nerves. I don't like sweets, she said, pushing the pie back toward him. After school, Tommy showed up at her house, something he had never done before. I made you a whole pie, he said, grinning and holding it out to her. A whole pie made from yellow raspberries. They're like gold. Gold is my favorite color. Golden raspberries? Mom exclaimed. Really? How marvelous. I never heard of such a thing. We picked them in New Hampshire, Tommy explained, still flashing that foolish grin. In New Hampshire. I told you I don't like pie, Rachel told Tommy. I don't eat sweets. How many times do I have to tell you? Tommy lowered his eyes and bit his lower lip. Well, I certainly do, Mom said, taking the pie from him. Thank you, Tommy. I'm going to enjoy every bite. That was on October 28th. Next morning, her best friend Missy phoned to tell her the news. Tommy Feathers was dead. He died in his sleep, Missy said. Oh my God, Rachel whispered into the telephone. She stared at the TV, a stupid cop show. A detective had just handcuffed a suspect, and the man looked guilty. Scruffy beard, haunted eyes, wild hair. The detective started to read the man his rights. You have the right to remain silent, he began. What does that mean? The suspect interrupted. It means you have the right to be quiet, the detective snapped. Now shut up and listen. Rachel was half aware of Missy's voice in her ear, talking over the telephone, but she couldn't get beyond those 5 words, the right to remain silent. She could see them in her head, the right to remain silent. What happened? Mom asked when Rachel put down the phone, and Rachel tried to answer. She tried to say it. Tommy Feathers is dead. She reached deep down inside herself to find those words, but they were cold when she touched them, frozen. She knew those words could never fly. Things got pretty crazy after that. Mom talked to her, pleaded, begged, cried. That night and many nights after, Mom held Rachel in her arms. Mom wept and talked and begged some more. Why won't you talk to your mother? Mom asked. I can't, Rachel wrote on a small pad of paper. Oh my God. Her last word, God. Her father telephoned all the way from his cattle ranch in New Mexico. Rachel held the phone against her cheek and tried to picture him, the hat and expensive boots, while she listened to his voice. I don't get it, he said. A boy in your class dies and you stop talking? It makes no sense. What's the connection? Rachel breathed into the phone. Mom set up appointments with counselors, psychologists, therapists. A specialist named Dr. Bang Jansen diagnosed her as selective mute, a person who chooses not to speak. She explained to Rachel and her mother that often this kind of reaction is caused by some kind of profound emotional trauma. The condition is temporary, Dr. Bang Jensen said. Usually. Sometimes Mom wrote notes too. They'd make a pot of tea and sit at the kitchen table, both of them silent, writing back and forth. I'm so worried about you. I'm okay, Mom. Your father said it as if your voice died along with that poor boy. I told him her voice isn't dead. It's only sleeping. Maybe. Or maybe it's just frozen. There must be some way to thaw it out. Writing notes back and forth helped to reassure Mom a tiny bit. But now there was a panicky light in her eyes. The doorbell rang. It was Missy, come to walk her to school. Hi, Missy, Mom said. Hi, Mrs. White, Missy said. Mom turned back to look at Rachel. You look terrific, she said. You always look smashing in that skirt. Rachel leaned into Mom's hug. Keep your eyes peeled on the way to school, Mom whispered. Okay, honey? And if you happen to spot that voice of yours lying on the ground, well, just pick it up and bring it home. Rachel closed her eyes and nodded. Mom said the same thing, word for word, every morning. And that is the end of chapter 1.